for change on foreclosures on the West Coast and maybe elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so we're really privileged to have them today with us. But I'd like to talk about from the standpoint of Oregon Action, which is a statewide social justice organization. A lot of our members are low-income people that have been on the kind of marginal side of society. And what I think our role is to help outline where are the avenues for change that we can move. So one of the ways that Oregon Action got into this has been our concern for jobs. It's been always been a premier issue in the Rhode Valley. And because of the lack of funding for loans for small businesses, those have dried up in the Rhode Valley. It's one of our engines. So what we're interested in and what we're going to talk about today is not just what is the problem, what is we're going to look at, what are all the issues with Bank of America and Wall Street banks, but what are the solutions? And then how we as citizens and people can get behind those solutions. Because we recognize that just saying we want to tear down a Wall Street bank does not build up the infrastructure of what we want in Oregon or in Southern Oregon. So as we look at this, I think the framework that we're looking at and we can talk about today is how do we democratize and make transparent and change and localize the financial institutions in the community. And that is going to take a long time. It's going to take some time to do. But as we understand what are these big problems, and we have to understand, okay, now where are we going to? That comes to the creation of a state bank. And so let me just see a quick hands. How many people have been at least familiar with what a state bank is and does? So a lot of people, but not everyone. So I'm just going to give just a little smidgen of a summary, and then we're going to turn it over to Andy to talk about where we are with Bank of America and Ashland. But in about 1919, the conditions in North Dakota, which has the first state bank, for farmers were not unlike what we're seeing today. They were oppressed by the railroads and the banks. They were being foreclosed. They were living at subsistence levels as families. They were losing their ability to farm and their ability to work because of that oppression of the banks and the railroads. And they created a group called the Nonpartisan League, and they started organizing. And they took over the state of North Dakota, the legislature, and elected a governor and passed the first state bank. And a state bank is a way in which state money comes together as a financial institution to basically partner with local banks to provide money for agriculture. Makes sense for them. So they're controlling their own financial institutions in that state for small businesses. And then they started providing student loans. And in fact, if you all get a chance to see Jeff Golden's show, Immense Possibilities, I think it's the 24th of January, it's a half-an-hour program on the state bank. And they have one of the top senior leaders in the North Dakota State Bank system, been there for 40 years. And it's it's just a really good primer on what the state banks can do. So let me just say that the state bank is one of the pieces that we're going to be, but I'm not going to go into all the details of what the state bank can do and there is a campaign for that. We almost passed it in the last legislature, a virtual state bank. All of these things are going to take a step at a time. And there is a bill called Invest Oregon that's going to go into the 2012 legislature, backed by Treasurer Wheeler and Governor Kitzhaber, which needs to be improved, but is a start of our direction towards a state bank. And in mid-early February, I think it's going to be the 11th, we're going to have a big public forum here in Medford with all the state bank people from around the country, not country, excuse me, the state, to look at how we begin to lobby and pull all that together. So, does anybody have questions about a state bank?
How close did we come last time?
We came very close. It's a bipartisan issue. In North Dakota is a Republican state, so Republicans don't hate the notion of the state bank. And so it came very close to passing and went through the committees with bipartisan votes. But the 30-30 split in the House didn't let it get past the kind of essential blockage that was there. And I think they think with the governor's kind of new twist on this that maybe they can get it through this time. But I don't want to go too much further this because we want to talk about Ashland and Bank of America. Otherwise, to say that that campaign has a commitment of a lot of people in Oregon. If we don't get it in 12, we will be bigger and badder in 13, and we'll be out there either with initiatives or a changed legislature to have it happen. And it is going on in other states. California passed a commission to say about how they're going to do that. And when I heard, and let me just say about this, because California passed this commission, said, well, why don't they just change it? But one of the things that you learn about both the state bank and what we're going to learn about Ashland is that these changes are big. We didn't get into this mess in 1 year. We got into it over time, and the changes that we have to do are going to take some time, they're going to take some thought, and so that is what we're initiating now. But we need, in that process, we need democratic participation, we need accountability, and we need transparency. And those principles are the things we have to build starting right here in Ashland. And that means, unfortunately, for some of us, or maybe all of us, we're going to have to learn these inside pieces about financial institutions and investment policies and things like that. So we found that the city of Ashland, and we were looking at all the cities, we're part of a national coalition called the New Bottom Line that is looking at fundamental change around banking, and their thing is to get all the cities to divest. They came to us in September and said, you want to be part of this? We said, yeah. So we've been sending one of our leaders to the national movement to do that, and so we started looking, and lo and behold, Ashland had one of its accounts in Bank of America, and there's been a little bit of a history about this, so not wanting to belabor about what all the other cities are at, this looks like a good starting place for us. So Andy Seller has been doing some of the research on Bank of America, so Andy, I'm going to go over and hand out some of the pieces, just so that we can all be familiar with where Bank of America is in relation to...
Sure.